Welcome everyone to another Building Digital micro conference. My name is Kaiska Heel and I am the multimedia producer for Building Digital. Now this micro conference is titled The Future of AI Integration in Construction, sponsored by Ignite. So this micro conference will analyze how artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the construction industry by enhancing project planning, execution, and data management. Our panel will discuss the emergence of AI applications within construction, including predictive analytics for risk management, automation in scheduling, and real-time data analysis for improved decision-making. We'll also discuss the opportunities and challenges associated with implementing AI technologies in the built environment, providing valuable insights into both the potential benefits and the practical hurdles. So let's discover how leveraging AI technologies can transform your construction projects, drive innovation, and prepare your organization for the future of the industry. Now for our final keynote speaker, who is Tomas Hollingsworth. He is the Director of Technology at BW Workplace Experts. So Thomas, would you like to share your screen and I'll let you take it away.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see so many familiar faces today. I do have a bit of a slide deck, but I don't want this necessarily to be death by PowerPoint for you. I think as Alistair was talking and Pavlina were talking, there's so many threads that I kind of want to pick up on and bring to life. We are a construction company. We are doing these things that we were talking about on the last few presentations. So I think if you don't pick up one of those threads that you actually want to know about, I've probably got a worked example that I can provide. So put the message in the chat and we can make this interactive. I'm aware that it's a Thursday afternoon and most people in construction are probably thinking about the pub rather than listening to me talk about AI. So as interactive as you wanted it to be, but I'm just going to give you a bit of context about our journey as BW, a little bit about our company, to give you some context about who we are and the journey that we've been on and how we've got to here today. Because I think when we hear about these theories, it can feel very daunting. And you feel like you're left behind. But I think if I tell you about our journey and how quickly we've developed our journey from zero to today, you'll kind of relate to it. So I'm going to start off by just saying a little bit about BW. This year we have a turnover target of 300 million. Last year we did 250 million. We are a very, very customer-focused organization. So our CEQ is currently sitting at 8.25, and we're targeted for that to be 9 by the end of the year. We currently have 290 experts. That's headcount for everyone outside of BW. And we have about 4 extra people arriving every day. Last year, we did around 28 to 30 tech innovation launches within the 12-month period. And what do we actually do? We are a Cat A refurb specialist. Cat A is your ceilings and your silver floor that you get from your landlord when you take an office. Cat B is our next area of speciality. That's taking the silver floor and the ceiling to something beautiful that's been designed by an architect. We're also exploring the higher education sector, and that's a huge area of growth for us. So we've gone from 0 to around 20% of our turnover being in the higher education sector, something really exciting for us. We also do in situ refurb. So those things that you want to happen within your evolving nature of your workplace. If you want a staircase delivered into a skyscraper, you come to us and we'll do it for you. And then finally, the latest division of our company is a turnkey D&P. So that's right from I fancy an office to putting you in that office, white glove period. It looks beautiful. So all the way through, we'll support you. Our business is centered around our 3 layers, net zero and inclusivity. They're really important that we represent the environment that we're working in and the communities that we're working in. And then my particular favorite, completely unbiased, as we've been talking about, is innovation. And I believe that innovation is the wrapper around all of our layers in terms of it can enable all of these things to work better. And then we all deliver that with something called defect free, which is our quality promise. So we have lofty targets to be defect free on 75% of our projects. So that means when we hand over the project to our client, they're going to have 0 snags. All the O&M and documentation is all going to be in order, and they're completely happy, and their CEQ score is above the 9 that we require. We're currently 100% on that this year, so it's a big year of success for us so far. I'd like to tell you a bit about my journey at BW because those are some great statistics. We have a fantastic company. However, I joined BW 7 years ago. I was previously in the aviation sector, and I thought that in aviation and IT together, we probably had the record for the number of acronyms that we use. However, coming into construction, that's completely blown that out the way. I think even today has proved that with AEC, AI mentioned on multiple occasions. So I arrived and I thought this is a really forward-facing company. They want to do things differently, and we had around 10 sites at that point. To give that perspective, we now have about 35 live sites. And I went to one of the sites and they said, this is our flagship site. And there was a drawing board with a load of paper and a very, very experienced construction manager and project manager reading off those drawings and giving people orders. There was no technology being used on that site. So I said, where's all your technology? How do you operate? They said, well, this is how we operate with all this paper. And so I said, yes, but what about computers? You must have some sort of computers. Don't worry, Tom. My wife's got that at home. I take back all this stuff at the end of the day, and she will do that for me. And at this moment of dread, everything drained from me. What have I done? I've come from a very forward-facing industry, very technologically advanced into construction. However, after a little cry, I went home and I took it as an opportunity. When you don't have anything, we just need to look at an opportunity. And so I did a deal with the guy. I said, you need to teach me how to build, and I'm going to teach you about technology. And it was really interesting how we developed that relationship. And I think one of the key messages that I have is that we need to take technology onto the job site. He said, I don't want people sitting in an office somewhere telling us how to build. And so that's kind of been my ethos behind everything that we're doing at BW, is to bring the information onto that job site so that people are accessing that data in real time. They're pushing the boundaries of innovation at the same time as it being a sensible technology implementation. And that goes all the way through all our implementations that we're doing to those 28 last year. We're looking at how we can implement that with the least possible change, and bringing people on that journey is so important. And actually, he's probably the best user of technology now. He's walking around site currently with an iPad. He's using Procore. He's using that technology because together we had that partnership of, would you do this? How would this work for you? And showing those end results was really, really important. And now we've come to a stage uh, um, in our life cycle, as I'm going to show you in a second, that we're actually now looking at what's our next generation, where do we go next, what tools can we use next, and we're coming to a point now where we're actually questioning our policy of looking outside our industry to these technological advanced companies and going, actually, we're kind of at the same level now. So what do we do next? What's next for us? Where do we look? And so that's kind of why we've come up with the technology life cycle. And this is something very simple that I think everyone in the business really responds to. So at the top, we've got our identify. And so I go out on site all the time. I'm always looking for opportunities, as I said earlier. So we have innovation hubs, bringing people in to sites and saying, what can we do better? How can we do better? And we sit in between amazing clients and consultants who are brimming with technology ideas, and we sit next to our supply chain, again, brimming with ideas and technology, wanting to make things better. So I sit in the middle of that, and those innovation hubs are really good ways of extracting that information and making them happen. We obviously look outside the industry, as I've said before, and we're looking for amazing partnerships with technology companies because we're a very, very small team at BW in terms of our technology. So we have 6 business as usual IT support and 2 outside of that within our data team. So we don't have a huge amount of resource. And obviously, as Alistair has been saying, the pace of change right now is incredible. So keeping up with that requires some really good partnerships. And that's one of the things I started at BW, was looking for taking away from, they're a supplier of IT to us, and we need to get the lowest possible price, to going, how can we both win? If we're both working together, I'm coming to you, advancing your business, investing a huge amount of time and also resource into you. I expect the same from you. And how do we move that forward? And that's really worked for us. We've got some great innovations, which I'm going to show in a second. I'm actually going to get to the real stuff. The second one is plan. How do we put that into practice? Strategy workshops, again, bringing everyone on that journey with us, and also reverse mentoring. That's something really interesting, is the latest generation of people coming into the construction industry. They're like me. They're not builders. They're much younger than me, but they're not builders. But they expect technology first. So when you ask them to go and make a note, they don't pick up a notepad, they pick up their iPhone. And so you have to kind of have that environment where they feel comfortable around that. But what we've also noticed is there's a ceiling to their willingness to innovate. And there's also a little bit of cautiousness that comes from them as well, in terms of they're very comfortable with their Apple ecosystem and their notes. However, when we take it to this next AI level, there's a little bit of trepidation because they're reading so much information. So I'm going to go into some of that of how we've kind of reverse that trepidation and the reverse mentoring program that we have in terms of I have three people who I go and chat to about technology. They chat to me about what's happening on the building side and how we reverse that now. Um, and execution, a really important part, obviously, bringing stuff to life, making it happen. And we're going to go into a lot more around that. But we have a technology life cycle within that that helps us constantly iterate. So as soon as we get something done, we're looking how can we improve it. And so rather than the development process that you've probably heard before, which is, we've been developing this application for a year, we probably will put it into practice within weeks, and then we'll constantly iterate rather than doing major releases. I think that's kind of where the whole software industry is going to. And then the most important part for me is feedback. I absolutely love feedback, both on a personal level and also what we're doing within the business and also BW as well. And so I'd love to hear your feedback today about this session as well. But we do customer experience questionnaires. We do NPS benchmarking against some of the world's leading brands. We constantly ask, what does our industry think of us compared to our competitors? And we're also doing some amazing work with the research and development credits to make sure that it's affordable for our business. Again, we are a small organization on the scale of technology, expanding and growth. So every penny counts. And I always have that motto of, that if you're spending money, it needs to be done properly. So rather than spending money on traditional IT stuff, I'd say, look, how can we save money on the day-to-day Dell laptops in order for us to do something really fun at the end of that? So let's make it real now. Let's move on to the next section. We've kind of been through this with Alistair to death, so I'm not going to go into it, but we all know why AI matters. It was actually 7 years ago that I was sitting at a Microsoft conference and they said, if you don't have AI in your business plan in the next 5 years, your business is going to become irrelevant. And this is kind of from some fancy consultancy firm that they'd brought in. And at the time, I went back to the board. I was obviously very new to the company. Technology was not as dominant as within the board at that level at that time. And I said, we need to put AI into our business plan. I said, sure, Tom, what is it? I kind of took a moment. I didn't really know myself. You kind of think, you've heard about it before. Is it Turing? Am I going to be cracking codes? But actually, I don't really know what it is. So I, again, went out to partners, and at this time it was Microsoft. And I said, what are you doing with AI? And at that time, they didn't actually brand it under this term of AI. They said, we're doing a lot of computer vision. And that's exactly where we started. So we did some facial recognition. So we had a very early facial recognition sign-in system to our sites. We've now iterated that and actually gone out to a third party. But the proof of concept for signing into sites was actually an internally developed application using Microsoft Computer Vision. And that's kind of where AI was driving, taking photographs and tagging them with information. We were using that very, very early on. And that's actually when I went to Ignite and I said, look, I'm doing this, but I think we could do that within your platform because at the moment I'm taking the data from Ignite, I'm taking it across to Microsoft, processing it, and then I'm bringing it back into Ignite. And so it's actually a really interesting conversation I had with Ignite at that time, a guy called Nick Decker there. And he said, that's really cool. I think we could do that within our platform. And I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but I think that's probably why that's now integrated into the Ignite platform by default. So you don't have to do any of that. But that's kind of the relationship that we've developed with partners, especially Ignite. We kind of both say, this is really cool. Can we use it? Or we're doing this. So would this really work in your platform? How can we use that together? Obviously, Ignite being an open platform. I'm not just saying this because they're sponsoring the session, I promise. We do have a really great relationship together. And that also works with Procore. We do the same things. We're doing this, or we've got a proof of concept around this that we're building. Procore, could you build it into your platform? So therefore it becomes almost part of the DNA of your platform and the daily life of our users. So we have really great relationships with people around that. We are and have been for many years investing in data and bringing data back. We have data lakes, we have Power BI, we have a huge number of SQL databases running micro applications within the business. But don't worry if you don't have those things. There are solutions. I think if we were having this conversation probably a year ago, it would have been a different conversation you need to have in terms of if you don't have your data in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, you shouldn't be looking at AI. However, that's kind of changing now, and thanks to AI, that those tools are now coming out that they can actually form your data, put it in the right place, with the power of things like vector databases where you can store unstructured data, documents, and things like that. It makes it a lot easier. So don't necessarily feel intimidated by the fact that we've been investing in data for a long time. And that kind of goes back to my point of I have a hatred of the word digital transformation, because to me it doesn't mean anything. When someone has it in their CV, I do get a little bit panicky, because I said, what is digital transformation? I said digital transformation probably happened 40 years ago when we started using spreadsheets. Yes, Excel came out over 40 years ago, and then we moved to actually we're using a construction management platform like Procore. That's our digital transformation. Well, unfortunately, that was 20 years ago now. Ignite themselves, I think that was 15, 16 years ago that we started looking at cloud storage. So all these things are kind of retrospectively looking back. However, the important message behind that is that you can make such a difference very, very rapidly now. So with the SaaS products that we were talking about, you can have an enterprise level file storage within weeks and have all of your data on that. You can have a construction management software in weeks. Without that need for infrastructure that you'd have before making that purchasing decision, before you'd have had to have bought a huge amount of licenses, thought about your infrastructure, thought about how you're going to run and integrate that into your business. However, you can take a very quick trial of all these products very quickly and see if it works for your business. I think I was actually talking last week about how these events that you can go to around the country, Birmingham and London, that you can maybe go through 70 or 80 different suppliers in one location and work out whether that's right for your business. So whilst we are looking at AI all the time and how to digitize, a huge part of it always goes back to the human element of it. And so I don't think that's ever going to disappear, that getting into a room, spending time with people and working out what's right for your business. So I think there's a massive human message throughout all this, and the theme of trust is really big. I need to trust those partners that I'm working with. So how did we start? Well, we all went into a room and I said, what's available at the moment? I said, I don't want to know about these lofty ideas of, someone saying, wouldn't it be cool if we took a program and then we uploaded it and then suddenly all our dates and drawings are developed from that. I said, I want to know what we can do within the next 2 months and have something actionable happening. So I said, we need to go to our partners, go to what's available already online and look for very quick wins. So we've already touched upon it now. The meeting summarization Fireflies is actually a product that we use and we have been using, I think, for around 3 years now. It revolutionized our business and took away a lot of that writing of notes, especially during that CEQ process. Before that would be a manual note-taking exercise, which then gets passed to another member of staff who would type it into a document, who would then retype it into another document, copy and paste it into our Salesforce, and then that would be the outcome of it, that we'd have that data available. We've taken all those parts out now. So the meeting that you're having with during the CEQ with the end client is being transcribed by AI. It's then taken straight into Salesforce, and then we have some dashboards that are reporting from it. We did that within a matter of months, and they were now live. It saved a huge amount of time. It saved a huge amount of errors. And it's also, we touched upon this bias word earlier. What's being taken down by that AI is much less biased than our salesperson taking that information down. We've noticed huge shifts in the information that we're getting, a lot more detailed information. We can go back and replay that meeting if we want to know more about what the tone of that person was. And then we're also doing sentiment analysis using highly complex models as well. So we're actually getting a lot more information, a lot more detailed information about how our customers feel, which we're actually now putting into practice. A real powerful one for me. I'm dyslexic, and lots of my information management team are as well. So we sent them out and said, what can you do with AI? And I said, be be careful though. I don't want to see these really excitable emails coming from you with huge amounts of texts. I said, see how you can teach it to be your natural language. And we had some really great success with Microsoft Copilot in terms of them starting to write and be more cohesive with their emails. They took a huge amount of pride in that. And now it's almost natural for them to use Copilot when they're writing emails in their own style. And one actually thing I wanted to touch upon was just how these simple things sometimes take you by surprise. We're here talking about data lakes and all these kind of things. However, one real powerful thing for me is I sat in a room with our estimating team, and they said it's a real struggle for us to find data within these massive tender packs that we get sent. So I said, what kind of information do you want from there? He's like, well, we've got a list of keywords that we like to search for, but in my Microsoft um, Explorer search, it just takes forever to get those keywords back, and then it doesn't search within the document. So I said, I'm going to revolutionize your life right now. And we got the Ignite interface out and we did a very simple search for some of his keywords and it brought it back because Ignite is taking the documents, OCRing them, and then bringing back those search results in a matter of seconds rather than the minutes that he was waiting before for inaccurate results in Microsoft Explorer. So a real powerful change, and they reckon that saved thousands of hours. And I know there's lots of other platforms that do something very similar, but that was just something so powerful that happened just by mistake. So sometimes don't always look for the big wins all the time. Something simple can be a huge win that's sitting behind there. And then what's next? I think we've talked a lot about data and processing and decision making. So we have our data in a data lake. So we're bringing data from Procore, our construction management. We're bringing CVR data from financials. We're bringing our coins data, also financial, our pay apps from our subcontractors. We're bringing our estimates in. And this is actually a little application that I was making in my spare time, which was to answer PQQs. So we get a PDF sent to us. This application would take that PQQ, extract the questions, and then offer answers for our pre-construction team. They really loved this because they were answering the same questions over and over again from an Excel document. So it'll actually populate and push out that PQQ document back to the client very, very easily with the correct information, just waiting for that extra layer of checking by someone of the team and also to add that custom information for that PQQ. And we looked at that and we thought, can we take this to the next level? We've got all that information that I described earlier. Can we see if we can make AI make a decision on whether we should bid or not bid this tender? So we spend about £3 million on tendering each year. Half of that disappears because we have what is considered an industry-leading 1 in 2 win rate. However, we're still letting a huge amount of money coming out the till that we could be spending on other things. So as a first pass, it'll take all that information from that job. It'll try to understand that job because it's taking all those tender documents in and it's telling us based on previous experience. So the team working together, the client, the location, the type of office, the structural elements in that. They'll put all that information together and it will give an indication of whether we should do that tender or not. And it's actually been quite an interesting experience because lots of people were very skeptical about this initial summary. But however, we have a lot of very knowledgeable people, but obviously they have a huge bias at the same time. So how can we enable them to have as a first pass that information? And then now they've actually become really interested in how we can take that further again, looking at more information, taking in public information around that from, the kind of council information, heritage information. So bringing more and more information into that pool to make that decision even more impressive. And it's one of those areas of AI that we actually need skeptics as well. So whilst we always say that AI is biased, there is also a point of it that as humans ourselves, we are very biased because we're seeing the same things come in and over again. And sometimes we get blinded by, wow, that's a fantastic brand name. Wouldn't I like to build that office for them? But actually, in terms of commercials, is that the best route for us? I think in terms of technologies, MCP is something that's really interesting. So at the moment, we obviously are subject to getting data from APIs and SQL databases. However, the MCP protocol effectively takes getting data from different platforms to like a USB-C cable. That's the best way. I think I've heard it described is it's a USB-C cable. It's all your devices, all your platforms, plug it in, and you can get data from between them and makes it really, really quick. So I think that's something really excited that we're going to touch upon in the industry very soon. And I think I have loads of other examples. So we touched upon recruitment, and that's really interesting because I was actually discussing with our recruitment team about how people are now using ChatGPT to enhance their CV according to the job description. Um, and how do we filter out that first layer of people? Because I built a very simple recruitment app which would take the job description that the HR department have created. It would take the CVs and it would give a recommendation of who we should interview and also any gaps that we should ask questions upon during that interview. And we noticed that it was getting more and more relevant as the popularity of ChatGPT was increasing. So we had that kind of parity of everyone is meeting every one of our criteria. How do we work around that? So it was actually quite an interesting conversation. I went out and had a conversation with a recruitment partner as well, and they said we're having a real problem because the uh, the recruiters are now sending out job descriptions that are made by ChatGPT. The candidates are now giving us ChatGPT generated CVs, so we have no way of that initial filtering. So I said, wouldn't it be interesting then if we used AI to do our first layer of interviewing? So we ask questions and see if we can get ahead of that kind of AI centric response. And so we're actually testing that now. So we're using a streamed avatar to ask questions around the CV to look at those gaps within the CV if there are any, ask questions about previous experience and give us a summary as a first level. It's probably been one of the most controversial things that we're doing within AI at the moment, which actually brings me on to the conversation that we were having around ethics, which I think is really fascinating. Um, what is ethical? It was a big topic of conversation in our AI task force meetings that we were originally having. So we've developed what we call an ethics board. So we ask them questions. I take them a new application to them and say, "What do you think of this? How does it make you feel?" And that's made up of people from within our communities, which really plays into our inclusivity layer. And this is the one they feel most strongly on because they feel that the human connection when you're in the interview process is really important. So I'd be interested if anyone has any viewpoints on that. And as part of our ethics and uh, journey into AI, we're also hopefully going to become the first construction company that is ISO 42001, which is the AI standards, to bolster our already 27001. I think data security and compliance is on everyone's mind at the moment after these big incidents that have happened recently. And so whatever we can do to stay ahead of that is really important. But again, in terms of that journey, AI has been so um, transformative in terms of enabling us to do these things much quicker than we were before. And I think that's where to our internal users, I sell it as it's your assistant. It's going to make you better so you can spend more time building faster, better, and safer. And to those people within the industry, I say this is all adding up to an amazing amount of adoption. And I think one of the interesting talking points of the last few weeks is the generation of the images and the dolls um, using ChatGPT. So make me a doll. My friend who's very, very techie said, I really dislike that because it's wasting GPU. I said, however, it's adding to adoption. If someone's comfortable generating a doll of themselves, then they're comfortable using ChatGPT. They're going to be comfortable when we use AI internally. So I think that's the biggest message is that we are all in it together. We're all learning together. Things are happening so fast, but the more we can do to make it friendly and approachable, it really, really helps. Anyone's got any questions, if you want to have any feedback, if anyone wants to disagree, I'm more than welcome to open the floor. But thank you for listening to me today.
Okay, I'll do a quick summary of today's event. So, first we had Pavlina Nikolova, who was the AEC practice lead for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Ignite. Pavlina introduced Ignite and the Content Cloud platform and gave a couple of examples of good practice user cases. Pavlina went on to discuss some of the problems in using AI within a company system, and the main point is to start with a well-governed data set. Pavlina asked the question, how ready are you for AI? And explained if your data is not clean and consistent, then tools won't be accurate, just like Lego, but without the instructions. Now, AI principles need to follow the pattern, private, purposeful, and practical, and most importantly, should be easy to use and user-friendly, as otherwise, what is the point? Then we had Alistair Reisner. He was the Chief Executive of the Civil Engineering Contractors Association. Alistair discussed the current state of AI in construction, highlighting its growing impact across management, commercial, delivery, and support functions. He also outlined the key benefits such as improved decision-making processes, optimization, cost forecasting, safety monitoring, and recruitment. But he also did warn of the significant risk, including data quality issues, privacy breaches, overdependence, workplace displacement, bias, and intellectual property concerns. With no formal AI legislation yet in place, Alistair stressed the importance of documenting AI use, conducting risk assessments, and understanding its impact on individuals. He concluded by recommending industry collaborations, adoption of existing standards, and targeted to manage AI risks and promote responsible use across the sector. And then finally, we had Tomas Hollingsworth, who talked about the future of construction. Tomas shared the company's journey towards a digital and AI transformation in construction. Starting from a tech-free site environment, Tomas spearheaded the integration of digital tools and real-time data, now embedded throughout platforms like Power BI and Ignite. BW drives innovation through collaboration with clients and consultants and tech companies via innovation hubs using agile rollouts and reverse mentoring to stay ahead. AI adoption from facial recognition on site to productivity tools like ChatGPT have improved efficiency, inclusivity, and accuracy across the business, even empowering neurodiverse team members. Emphasizing small, practical wins, trust, and ethical considerations, especially in recruitment, Tomas reinforced that AI is not replacing people, but acting as an assistant, and that companies without AI in their plans risk becoming irrelevant. So that was our Building Digital micro conference titled The Future of AI Integration in Construction, and it was sponsored by Ignite. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for contributing.